Oh, to have a little house, to own the hearth and stool and all, the heaped up sods upon the fire, the pile of turf against the wall, to have a clock with weights and chains and pendulums swinging up and down, a dresser filled with shining delf, speckled and white and blue and brown. I could be busy all the day, cleaning and sweeping hearth and floor, and fixing on their shelf again my white and blue and speckled store. Now that old poem by Pádraig Colum we all learned in school many years ago celebrated an old woman of the roads and her desire to have a house. And an integral part of the house in those days was the Irish dresser. And we're privileged to be out here in beautiful Renville to meet with Joe Ribbon. And Joe is a craftsman of the highest order. And Joe has dedicated his creative energies to preserving the art of the Irish dresser. But we're used to nowadays, I suppose, flat pack furniture coming into a house. This is certainly not flat pack furniture. It's an art form in itself and a skill. So Joe, you're welcome to Clifden Arts Festival, and we're privileged to have you here for the 46th Clifden Arts Festival. Can you tell us a little bit about your background as a craftsman and a cabinet maker, and how you got so interested in recreating the Irish dresser?
Well, thanks, Des, for coming, and it's a privilege to have you here today, lads. So thanks very much for visiting the workshop. Well, basically, I was brought up here in lovely Renville on a small farm here in the west of Ireland, and I was privileged to be given a chance in the 1980s to be part of a pilot scheme that was run in Letterfrack by Connemara West for early school leavers to learn a trade. So we were taken into Letterfrack. We were all very young. We would have left school. So we got this brilliant opportunity to do 3 years working as cabinet makers and wood skills and wood carving and wood turning and all that kind of thing. So that's where I started, I think in 1982. We started there, and we started to learn about cabinet making and all types of woodwork and all that kind of thing.
But you as a young lad, you'd have been into houses that had dressers in them.
Yes.
And seen them in the situation, and how important as a piece of furniture in the old Irish cottages and houses that the dresser it held a special place. And you carried this image with you, into your adult life, and now you started making them again. And we were talking early on, and you said that they were built inside the house.
Yeah. By
travelling craftsmen.
Craftsmen, yeah. If you want to roll back the years way back, I mean, most people would remember some kind of a dresser as they were growing up. We would remember them from my granduncle's house and my granny's house and all that. And there would always be, a bright colour, green or red like this one we have here. And the reason for that was they'd be white shelves or white background, and the reason for that was because the light was so bad in the houses. I'd be going back now to the first dresser that would have originated would be in the 1700s or possibly even before that. They would have been stained. There was no paint, really, gloss paint that time. But what ended up happening was that in the 20th century gloss paint came along and they started painting them so they would show up the crockery better and all that, because the light was so bad, because the windows and the doors were very small in the Irish cottages that time. So the getting the furniture in and out was always a problem. The height of the doors and things was always a problem. So sometimes the carpenter had come along, or the craftsman had be visiting the area or whatever, and he'd make the dresser inside the house. And it used to be a present actually for a new bride that might be coming into the household. They get a new dresser made for the groom. It pays somebody to make a new dresser or whatever for her, and then when she'd come in, she'd bring all her wares with her, and they'd be all displayed on the kitchen dresser. And as we know today, the modern kitchen, this is where it all started, way back with one piece where everything was done on the dresser. That was the modern kitchen of its day.
And Joe, it strikes me that it was the one place maybe in the house that the new bride, the woman of the house, could maybe show her prized possessions, small wedding gifts they got, like the crockery you say there, and little precious items of her own, you know.
Yeah.
So it was maybe a place that the woman could, it was her own special space.
Exactly. It was kind of to welcome her into the house, and also to give her a pride of place that she could do what she wanted with the dresser. It was her gift from the family or from the household. She could put her bits and bobs on it, and as the family progressed, it used to be a display of wealth, really. If you came into a house where there was very nice crockery and expensive looking crockery on the dresser, it meant the family were doing well, or they were starting to come on a bit. So it was pride of place, really, you know. So like the passion I have for it is because I believe that Irish family life was all built around the Irish dresser, and that's where it all rolls back to that. That's where it all started. It was the first sign of any kitchens as such, kind of, you know, and that time there was no such thing as a separate room for the kitchen like we have now. Kitchens and dining rooms are all separate, whereas way back in the time, in the old thatched cottage in Irish times, it was one big room, and then there was two small rooms off for sleeping quarters, whatever. So everything was done in the one room. So this part would have been classed as the kitchen. So everything would be stored in that. And believe it or not, if you want to roll really far back, they used to keep the chickens in the bottom of the dresser here. And like we can see on this one has panels in it, whereas the ones that had the chickens in them, these were open, but there was slats running up and down to stop the chicken coming out. So when they get up in the morning, the first thing they do is head for the bottom of the dresser, take out the eggs and put on the breakfast.
Right.
So now we don't do chickens in ours, but I mean, if you want
but
chickens...
Joe, it strikes me in talking to you there that you have a very individual skill, number one, to make the dresser in the sticking so well to the original design and timber as well. But you also have a marvellous passion for the story, the social history of the dresser and the special place that it had in the house years ago. And I think that's a very unique combination of the practical skills, but also the love of the cultural stories, the heritage of that dresser, and really a joy to continue doing that and to keep that alive. And that's what you're doing here in Renville, and we're privileged to have your gifts in our area. And your dressers have travelled around the world.
They have. Well, I've been making dressers for, I suppose, 25 years, since we probably made the first one. We actually still have the first one we made. So, I've been very lucky and fortunate that, people have asked me to make them, and they've been shipped out, whatever. So, and along with that, what I get an awful lot interested in is diaspora. People that would have travelled to America or travelled to London or wherever and left the West Coast and probably never to return, which an awful lot of immigrants unfortunately did not return through one thing or another. And they just feel that if they could have one of these Irish dressers when they retire or whatever, and we also make them in such a way we can make them modern, so they've got the nice glass finish on them and they look very nice, the modern kitchens. But we can also make them to look like that you've had them since the word go. We do all the edges like this one we have here, which is like a distressed dresser. To look at this dresser, you'd probably think that it was 100 years old. We can do anything with it. If it's made from wood, and if it's a dresser, we can make any shape, any size.
Joe, there's no plywood or
any artificial timber.
Artificial. It's all
pine, because that's what the old Irish dresser was made from. It was pine because I suppose there was a lot of pine around at the time, and they couldn't afford mahogany or any of these fancy hardwoods or anything like that. So everything is pine. So like these plywoods and all this kind of thing, and MDF and all that, them are all man-made wood really, whereas this is a natural product. And we like to recycle if we can. You know, if I could get older materials to use in these dresses, I would. So you mean if there was anybody that wanted to get a dresser made out of stuff they had themselves, we could certainly do that for them. We could.
Joe, could you tell us a little bit about, you were telling me early on about the sledges at the bottom of the dresser and what function that served?
Yes, well, we don't have them on this particular dresser here. The reason for that is that they're slightly a trip hazard. But in the old Irish dressers, they used to have what they call sledge feet, right? Which was a long piece of timber that was on the bottom of the dresser. And the reason for that, Des, was that there was no concrete floors in the houses. Most of them were soil or hardened soil or whatever. So basically what used to happen after 5 or 6 years or 10 years or whatever, the floor used to rot the bottom of the feet. So rather than it destroying the whole dresser, they used to replace the feet, which was, I thought, was for its time, was a great invention.
Yeah.
So that's the reason for the sledge feet on them.
And of course, there's the phrase we often hear at parties around the house, and mind the dresser.
I said to myself often.
Yeah, and we've said it, we've heard it a million times, and I suppose it signifies one thing: take care of that dresser and don't bang into it.
That's right. That's what it was all about, because pride of place, where it was a very important, you know, I mean, going way back where Ireland was quite a poor country, that was one of their main possessions, Des, you know. It was modern day kitchen really, as we know it, like, you know. And
the dresses that you make, Joe, now here, their lifespan, they'll see us out.
Oh yes, yes. A proper made Irish dresser, like, I mean, if you look at them today, if you could get one, like, you know, some of them could be 100 years old, you know. And I mean, this dresser here, like some of them that I have made 25 years ago, I've had people ring me back say, not as much as a handle fell off them. And there's been 7 or 8 kids reared in the house, and there was, you know, like you buy one of these, last you for 30, 40, 50, 60 years. And the thing about it is, you can change the colour. Like, you can take it to your next house or your next apartment or whatever, and you can change the colour. If you change the colour of your walls, your kitchen, or different tiles or whatever, all you have to do is change the colour.
And you were saying that the back of the dresser used to always be painted brighter colours.
Yes.
Because of the light, is it? Or?
The light. The reason for that was, you can see now here on this one, whereas it can either be the back or the shelves painted a different colour to throw up the light. It's to make the crockery look better. And the reason for that was, as I was saying, was because the windows and doors are so small in the Irish thatched cottages that light inside in the house is limited. And of course there was no electricity. So when people used to come into the house, the dresser had to look the part. So that's kind of the history behind that, which is quite interesting, you know.
And in our modern houses now, there's I think what they call minimal decoration and minimal furnishings, and but the Irish dresser and the ones that you make, they're works of art in themselves, and they would be adaptable to any, not just an old Irish cottage, but to modern houses as well.
Yeah. Because
they are a work of art.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, different finishes, you know. There's different finishes on them. We can, as I said, we can get them a gloss finish, we can get them a matte finish, we can give them the distressed look, whatever, you know, and they blend in. An Irish dresser, it'll blend in with any kitchen or any new type, you know, and you will find them all over the place, like, you know.
So, you know, in a sense, Joe, you're keeping an ancient Irish art form, very old Irish art form, alive through your gifts as a cabinet maker, but also through your interest in Irish culture. And you know, I think it's a marvellous thing that here in Connemara that we have somebody like you doing this, because I know that into the future, Joe Ribbon dressers will be in many houses long after we're all gone, and I'm sure will become collector's items. Thanks very much, Joe.
Thanks, Des. Thanks for coming. Thanks a lot.